Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm your amazing host, which you know and love, Evan. We have Jasmine, Sammy, and Robert here today. They're being a little podcast shy, but who can blame them? So today we kind of wanted to shift the focus of talking about like drinking and alcohol, which we really do a lot of like on our other social medias. But I think that today we really wanted to focus more on just the service industry and like tipping culture and tipping culture outside of the service industry, tipping culture within the service industry. What is the service industry, and just all things service industry, as me and Jasmine both work in the service industry. And have you guys worked in the service industry or no?
I've worked in fast food, but it's not really like service industry.
No, but that still counts though.
It does?
That still counts as, yeah. So Robert is like a lone shark, but that's okay because Robert can give us his unbiased opinion as someone who is a consumer of the service industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe we should start off by talking about tipping culture, because I feel like that's like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So I know here in America, it's like 20% in restaurants. Mm-hmm. But now there's this whole like shift toward tipping culture outside of the restaurant industry and more so in like fast food. Mm-hmm. So how about you kick it off?
Oh, sorry,
so,
didn't mean to.
That's okay. That's okay. As someone who's worked in the fast food world, what do you think that you deserve? Obviously, everyone would want 20% tip on whatever they're selling. But do you think that you deserve that, or do you think people who work in fast food deserve that? Like, what's your take?
Well, I think my personal experience is different. I worked at Chick-fil-A, and we had a very strict, like, no accepting tips policy. But, allegedly, I would accept a tip or two. If a customer is giving me money, I'm not going to turn it down.
Right. So, that's my opinion.
But I, kind of from that side of things, I see how hard people in the restaurant industry work. So I do agree that they should be tipped, but also as a customer, like, the tipping industry is kind of out of control, and it's to the point where now I go to a restaurant and gratuity's already included, and they'll still ask me for a tip on top of it, and that's kind of strange because I'm already giving you gratuity. Like, why are you asking me for more? But also, like, now I see a shift where instead of, on the receipt it'll tell you like percentages and it'll give you how much you should tip off based off that percentage. Now, like, sometimes I'll see the lowest percentage start off at 18%. Or even like 20%. When, like, I think I've seen previously in years past, it would start off like lowest was 15%. Yeah. So I definitely noticed like them trying to like not make you charge more, but like make you tip more.
See, now I'm curious to know your opinion too, Jasmine's opinion. Because I work at a restaurant where we do automatic 20% gratuity on parties of 6 or more because of the service that's required to give that to a table. Now, some people think that 20% tip is like, that's just what like you get. And some people tip based on the service. So for me, as I come at it from an opinion of like, well, since I work in the service industry and I know I give good service to tables, when I go out to eat, I'm honestly more strict on tipping. Because, like, I'm not going to tip you 30% of my bill if you just give me average service. I think 20% is, like, the minimum to me.
For me too.
For you have met, it's like meets, exceeds, and does not meet expectations. It's like a rubric. If you miss, but then that also gets into a conversation of, like, well, what would cause me to not tip 20%?
Yeah, I think we can talk about that a little bit later, too.
Yeah.
I want to know everybody's opinion on what do they define as good service, but that'll be next. For me personally, I work at a restaurant where 20% gratuity is included if your check is over $100 or if it's 3 guests or more.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So at my restaurant, it's pretty easy for you to get over $100, even if it's just 1 or 2 of you guys. So most of my checks are 20% gratuity included. but I also know that I offer great service. So I want to say 50% of my checks that I get, people tip on top as well, even with the 20% gratuity included. I feel like it's a little bit different now since tips are being added, or they are asking you now at the end of everything, such as like Starbucks or like if you get Chinese food or anything else, like to tip, because it's just like we make our money off of tips. We don't get a base pay or a wage. When I don't get a check from my job, actually. It's $0, so I don't see my hourly pay.
Wow.
Versus if you're working in a fast food industry or wherever else that is asking for tips, you get a base pay, so you know you're getting paid hourly plus tips, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, I feel like it's kind of pressuring now, but if you are offering me good service, like if I'm at Starbucks and I'm asking questions, or you just very like
personable.
Yes,
I've tipped at Starbucks
tipping.
before because of that.
So I feel like
you tip for the service.
Exactly.
So the thing is if I go to Starbucks and I buy my drink, I'm not receiving any service.
Exactly.
I can go to any Starbucks and get the exact same drink for the same price. Versus if you go out to a restaurant, if I go out to a restaurant and I sit with you versus you sit with me, you're going to get two different services. And that could completely change what you eat, completely change how you view the restaurant.
Your experience.
Exactly.
So to me, I'm going to tip off of an actual experience. Like getting a tattoo, for example, that is an experience. I will tip based on how it was, you know what I mean? Like you're already getting paid for what you're doing.
Exactly.
But then that leads to the thing. Wait, okay, I want to know your opinion though. As someone let's get to this conversation. As someone who's never worked in the service industry, what is your standard if you go out to, let's say, not fine dining, but like at a special occasion restaurant? What would you classify as like good service? Not exceptional, not great, and not horrible. Just like good, everything's accurate. You had no issues the whole time. Like good, just regular good service. Like what would you classify as that?
Well, I think for me, in terms of that situation, where it's just a strictly average experience, I'll tip default like 10%, 15%. It's when they add the additional that I'll go above.
That's why
the 20%.
You need to work in the service industry.
No. Here's my reasoning, right?
Yeah, I'm going to debate you on this.
It's because I will go above the 20% easily if they provide a really nice experience. Like I don't care. I'll give them $20 on top of a $50 meal.
Well, but he's saying that the experience is good.
It's
is good, but
Yeah.
it's just not exceptional. Like it's not like average, but it's average good. Like it is good service, but it's just not like
you ask you get your drink refill. You ask for a drink refill, it comes very quickly. Your food comes out quickly. You're not having to wait super long for anything. Like you're getting exactly like what you would expect out of that. That's kind of like my point.
Okay.
Fine. Maybe this is a better way to rephrase it. What would cause you to undertip someone?
Undertip. I like having easy conversations with people. If they're just chill, they're not angry, they're not pissy, they handle the situation well. I'm a chill dude. If they're a chill person, it's like, all right, whatever, 20%, easy. It's when they are rude or they kind of shift me towards something that I'm adamant that I don't want, which has happened before. It's when it's the rudeness, I think, is the first.
It's like personality?
Yeah. It's
interesting. Like
if you're personable, amicable, understanding, conversational, 20% and up, easy. It's when you're not those things that I'll feel pressured into giving you 20%. And then when you go below that and you're not conversational, you're not friendly, you don't have a really nice or appealing attitude, then it goes to 15, 10%. I'll still tip, obviously, but it'll stay around the 10 to 15% because, like, I'm paying you for the experience and for the relationship that we're building, even if it's momentary or whatever. So if I'm not going to have a good taste in my mouth afterwards, or if my food is going to be less enjoyable because of the interactions we've had, I don't think you deserve 20%.
I feel that. I understand where you're coming from. I think the frustration is like when you do give good service to people and then like they still don't tip you and then you're like, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're really, or to pin it back on the consumer, because I am not someone who thinks the customer is always right. Actually, I would argue to say that the customer's wrong most of the time.
Absolutely.
I hate that. I genuinely don't know what the menu is. If you have a better recommendation than what I know, by all means, give it to me. Like,
no, it's like people who will, like, I've had situations where someone will order something and I always repeat back what they ordered, and then it comes out and then they're like, that's not what I ordered. And I'm like, I literally just told you, I repeated it back to you and told you exactly what it was. That is what you ordered.
Exactly.
But then they don't, but like, then there's also situations when you work in the restaurant world where your service is hindered based on something that you can't control.
Exactly.
So if the host is rude, well, that's not my problem. I'm not the host. If the kitchen's taking too long for the food, the bar's taking too long for the drinks, that's when that like, but I think a phenomenal server like yours truly and like you knows that when that situation does happen, I've had situations where that has happened where I'm eating out. I think it depends on how the server handles it.
Yeah,
if the server acknowledges, hey, I'm so sorry, like if I know that my food is going to take longer and like may I offer you something like maybe a salad or like, you know, we'll discount it a little. Like we always like take our tickets should not take longer than 15 minutes. And if it does, we discount every single item. Like we write times on when it's supposed to be done. So that way then, but if it is taking long, like I would rather know and someone let me know. And like if the server's personal, like normally I don't care. If they're like, sorry, it's taking a little longer. I'm like, oh no, you're totally fine because I normally don't eat out unless like I want to eat a little bit longer. But I feel like because you're paying for the service, if the service is good, like it can be good even if bad things happen. Like if the kitchen's going slow, instead of being like, yeah, sorry, our kitchen sucks, like don't blame it on the kitchen. Like own up to your, like the table does not care whether it's the kitchen or the host or the bar or the managers or you. They care that the food that they paid for is now taking too long. So how are you going to handle that?
right.
So that's I feel like my opinion. And also like you're not paying for like at other places like a Starbucks or whatever, like you don't get that. So if you do, and if you go really above and beyond, then yeah, maybe I'll tip you, but like I don't have to tip you and I'm still going to get the same thing, which I guess you could make the argument at a restaurant. It's like, I don't have to tip you and I'm still going to get good service, but
not necessarily though.
Yeah. Because I was going to say it happens once. If someone under tips me, I will literally remember and like no one will want to take the table because we don't make hourly. Now that also leads into the conversation. And before we state it, I'm curious to know, do you think that servers should be making hourly?
On top of tips, I think so.
Okay.
I think they deserve a wage on top of tips. I think it's fair. They're working. They should have an hourly wage plus tips.
Yeah.
My problem with tipping culture is mostly when you move outside of the restaurant area where you're like, let's say you go to a coffee shop or something, or just a boba tea spot, right? Where it's not too much of a process to fill a cup. Or like if I want a bottle of water, I'm not going to put a tip.
Oh, yeah.
You're grabbing something out of a fridge. I could do that. Like what? So it's that area that I have most of my gripes with tipping culture. Is hardly having to do with the restaurants. Like it's just an expectation for me that I'm going to tip based off of the experience that I receive. But when you go to a coffee shop, a boba tea spot, any small place that it doesn't require too much effort on the worker's side to give you or provide the service, it's at that point that I'm like, all right, maybe for this $5 drink, I'm not going to give you $2.
Maybe it is the effort part. I just thought about that. Like I think it's how much effort actually goes into doing the job. That determines, are you worthy of doing a tip? Like for me, if like someone has never been like to our restaurant, then like that is going to require me to introduce the restaurant, talk about it. What are some of my personal favorite items? What like, you know, ask about allergens, ask about like, what do they like we call it like ping pong, where you ping pong with the guest and you kind of like, okay, well, like like, I want a cocktail. Which one? Okay, well, which alcohol do you like? Vodka. Okay, great. Do you like spicy? Do you like sweet? Do you like not sweet? Then, you just go back and forth. But I think that is where the 20% is.
Yeah.
Like, if I go out to a new restaurant and they can guide me through the entire menu and be like, this is what I think that you guys should try. And this is what I think you should try. Especially, like, I've noticed, like, I love when the manager comes over to the table and, like, make sure that everything's, like, good.
Yes.
That, like, and that's what we do at our restaurant. Like, but we're a little bit, I don't know, is yours fine dining or no?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see, like, ours is closer to fine dining. It's not like fine dining where, like, we have a dress code, but, like, it's definitely closer to that. Like, it's definitely more of a special occasion spot. But we always have, like, managers doing, like, table touches, making sure everyone's good. Because that, to me, is worth the 20% experience. Is you're going now, you're doing what's outside of, because the server is technically just an order taker. Mm-hmm. So technically, all I have to do is go up and ask, what do you want to eat? And then I write it down and put it in the kitchen and it comes out. So everything else is a part of the service that I provide to you.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess. But, like, okay, do you think that servers should just make hourly?
No.
Okay.
You said plus tips.
No, I'm wondering, like, because some people think that, like, servers should just make hourly, but the thing is like, I make like $37, $38 an hour, depending on my tips. So, like, why would I want to switch over to hourly? Because hourly is never going to be that much money.
Yeah.
And also, the argument with tips is, like, the reason why I don't necessarily care about hourly, first of all, only servers who don't make that much money care about hourly. Like, I don't care about hourly. Like, I make it. I'm sure you make enough. But when it's
the argument that I definitely would rather not make hourly, and I'm pretty sure any server wouldn't. But when it's the argument of, like, you know, this person making or getting tips versus plus their hourly versus us because I feel like it's always an argument of servers versus whomever else is trying to get tips or requesting tips or, you know. So I feel like for us, it's like we do more, we provide more, it's more, it's just more, period.
More, yeah.
So I feel like that's the discussion that you have to have. And it's like, yeah, we make our tips. We're not making hourly base pay plus tips. We're just making
just tips, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically our hourly. So, like, and then also servers go through moments when it's like a slow period or, you know, when we're not making as much. Like, I could go into work for 8 hours and make, you know, $30, $40. But, you know, you chalk it up because some days you're doing better than the bad. You have more good days than bad days.
Yeah.
But I also feel like your opinion on tipping is if you know someone who works in the service industry or if you worked in the service industry yourself. I feel like you won't truly or fully understand unless either of the two.
That's why I think people should. My opinion is I think that, like, I think about it more from not necessarily a, like, so you understand, like, tipping. It's literally because some people do not understand how, like, a restaurant, like, works.
For sure. Yeah.
It's like, why is my food taking? If I was out to eat and I realized that my food was taking forever, like, that could either be, like, I know from a restaurant perspective that's either there's a big party or something, which people don't take into consideration. If there's 40 people that just sat down and they all order at the same time, well, every order after that for, like, an hour probably is going to take a little bit longer. But, like, you just have to be aware of that. But I think, like, with hourly and stuff like that, it's like if servers did start making hourly, people would be less inclined to tip because you're already making money.
For sure.
So who cares? Then that goes into the, okay, well, you're already making money, so who cares? That's like Starbucks. Already making money, so why would I tip you on top of that? Also, tipping makes, I think, without having an hourly, it makes you be more personable with tables.
For sure.
Even tables I know already are getting a 20%, I automatically have a little less of a personality with them because I already know I'm getting 20%. So I know, like, not that I give them bad service, but it's just like I don't have to go above and beyond because your tip is already included.
Right.
But going back to your point of, like, how sometimes they try to get tips on top of, like, an auto tip, like we're required to, like, when I bring over the tab, normally I circle the service charge because it's written on our menu. So technically I don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion, is you should be able to read and know, okay, that, like, okay, I'm a party
Before
of 7.
You actually order, you
Right.
already know that gratuity
Is included.
Yeah.
I don't tell them at the beginning because that would affect my sales. And because that's my money, I'm not going psychologically if they know. Well, like seriously though, like if you know that you're already going to be paying more than whatever that price is on the menu, you're not going to be inclined to order as much. Even if I don't mention it though, you're not really going to think about it. Versus if I do mention it, it's going to be on the forefront of your mind. You may know that like, yeah, but like, okay, whatever, like a $15 drink, like, okay, yeah, 20%, whatever. It's like a $2. So then you order the whole menu and then it's like, oh. But normally I go over and I'm like, hey, I'm just letting you know, like it was a pleasure serving you. I'm just letting you know that we do include a 20% service charge for parties of 6 or more. I always say, every server handles it differently. I normally say like, if you feel inclined to tip more, it is not expected. It's always appreciated. We've loved having you tonight, and then just like leave it off on that. Sometimes you will, like I've had a party tip me, like I already got like $100 from the table because their tab was like $500, and then he tipped me another $100 on top of it. So I made $200 from just that table. But like that rarely happens. Normally people just put a line through the tip when I've already made the money. So it really depends though.
It does depend on the person, because I feel like if it may be someone who is used to going out and used to eating, and you know they like to dine, and they are going to tip, and they probably are going to tip on top. And then most of the time they already know how the restaurant works. They know how you have to tip out, because honestly we get tips, but we also have to tip out. We have to tip out the bartender. We have to tip out busters if we have them. We have to tip out server assistants if we have them. So it's a lot that goes into it, really.
How much is your tip out?
It's 3% for the bartender, and then we basically just but I tip more. I tip more, but
do you want to know what my tip out is?
No, 10%, 12,
28.
Oh my god!
Yeah. So 28% of every single tip that I make goes toward the restaurant.
Yeah.
So like, if you tip me $100, I'm only keeping, what is that, $72 of that $100. So like, but to be fair, we have service assistants, we have bussers, we have food runners. So like,
so that's 28% for everything?
Yeah,
okay,
that's like
I
everything.
Thought it was just the bartender.
No.
Okay.
Like but the thing is like then I don't have to worry about my food being run. I don't have to run literally anything. I don't have to bus my tables. I don't have to like greet the guests. I don't have to do anything. As soon as the table sits down, that's when I do my job. And as soon as they leave, they could have stuff all over their table. That's not my job to clean
exactly.
up.
So I feel like that's a lot.
It is a lot. But that's also why
it's understandable too. Because
but when my table's dirty, I'm like, you get paid 28% of my tips to clean up my table, so you will clean it up.
See, our restaurant is kind of smaller, so we give 3% to our bartender, but I give more. And then we have someone that comes around and helps when he can. So if he is helping me, of course I'm going to tip him out. But if he isn't helping me because it's not mandatory for him to help, I'm not going to tip him out. So it just depends, for sure.
Yeah, I just think tipping culture is like kind of crazy, because then you go overseas and it's almost seen as like rude to tip because they already make money.
Yeah.
So it's like when I went to Italy.
I read that online.
Yeah, when I went to Italy, I I felt so weird not tipping anything, like tipping literally $0. And she's like, don't tip anything like that. Don't do that. They don't do that. Like they already make money here. Like I asked her, I was like, what is the way, do you ever tip? Like, is that ever a thing? And she was like, if the service is like unbelievably amazing and like they're just great, or they're like a friend, maybe you would tip, but like it's very few and far between. Versus here, it's seen as rude to not tip. And it's like, but also then there's also bad servers who don't get tips. I'm like, well, like sometimes I expect a bad tip, because sometimes I don't give the best services on my tables and I expect a bad tip. But like that makes sense, because you did not get this. You got your food, but you didn't get like maybe the drinks took too long or whatever. But it's all really up to the consumer's discretion of whether or not they think I've given them good service.
For sure.
But like Starbucks, I'm not tip like $8 for a drink, and you want me to tip another $1?
It's already high, and then
for
now
what?
they're adding tipping. So it's just like
no, and it's not. And I also know that Starbucks, like people who go to Starbucks know that like, or literally anywhere, like Dunkin', McDonald's, I don't know, everywhere. Like you already know, one, they're already making hourly, and two, the way that they do their tips is like if they make like $100 in tips that whole day, it'll be split across the entire team and taxed.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, they're going to make $10. So it's not worth it to them for me to tip, and it's not worth it for me to tip.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not making a significant amount more versus me. If you tip me $100, like that's very significant. That'll go on to like my check like that, because you guys get paid in cash, right? End of the night. Yeah, see, I missed that. We get paid every 2 weeks.
That's very interesting because my business, they were trying to switch it to every 2 weeks, and then it didn't work out. Everybody was like, no. So then you have no workers, so
yeah. Ours is just because
back.
we have so many servers on the floor, and because we do have very high tabs, like you'd be literally tipping in cash like $2,000 or $3,000 a night, or like per shift. Because if you have 15 servers on the floor, and because our restaurant's pretty large, so you have like 15 servers on the floor, and say each server makes $100, which is rare. Each server would probably make like $250 to $300. Like that, like you're gonna tip out like thousands of dollars in cash. Like, also, I don't want to carry around $500 in cash. Like honestly, like I'd rather just have that go on my check. And we also get taxed. But
that's another thing.
Yeah, but the thing is like when it comes time for tax season, when I worked at a restaurant for like 2 years, I got like my tax and I owed like almost $2,000 in taxes because you don't pay anything. Versus now, I'll get probably a tax refund from all of that. So at the end of the day, I get taxes and tip out taken out of my check.
But do you get hourly like $2.13?
$2.13.
Okay. So that
which
is
we
still
do get
kind
paid.
of going to taxes as well.
That's right. Like it does even out. So
whatever I get paid hourly, which I think they changed it from $5 to like $3. That is all my taxes.
That is insane to just like talk about though. Like $5 an hour. Who came up with it? $3. Yeah, mine's $2.13.
But the base, I think that's like the.
This is why I'm saying like bump it up.
I know,
minimum $2.13, I believe.
So like I understand why you guys are against having an hourly wage, but I do think maybe it should be more than just $2.
It should.
Like
it
I
should
think maybe
be.
6,
it should be
7 minimum wage at least.
But the thing is like you have as a server, and some nights like on a Friday night I can either make like $150 on a slow night or like $500 or $600. Mm-hmm. So like some nights I make like $600. I'm like $600, and I'm like, damn, like I literally made like $50 an hour. Mm-hmm. But then some nights I make like $7 an hour. So like it evens out. Like, and it also depends on what tables you have. Like if you're seating in rotation, it's like if you seat in rotation, which I don't know if you're familiar, but it's basically like where the host, like if us 4 are the servers on the floor, the host will seat Jasmine, then seat you, then me, then back to Jasmine, then you. But like, say you get 8 people, you get 8 top, you get 2 people, you get 1 person, I get 1 person. We've all been sat the same amount of times, but you are going to get more money because you have 8 people. So it really depends on the night about who sits in your section, how much you talk up the table. Like it's so dependent on so many different factors.
It really is. It depends on if, the kitchen is doing good this night, if the bartender's doing well, you know, if you have everything in, because at my restaurant, sometimes we run out of inventory a lot. So it's like, I'm sorry, we don't have that. You came here for that? I'm so sorry, we don't have that. So now they're mad. Like,
but again, that's when you have to be like, okay, how do I you
do.
Yeah, it's like if they wanted that, how do you then diffuse? And that's why
that's
why I think that you should be tipping servers, because there's a whole other side of the restaurant, not service, restaurant industry, where like before I even like I don't know, like even start working, like you have to like train, you have to know the whole menu, you have to know the bar drinks, you have to know what everything tastes like, you have to know like if someone comes in, because there's so many different situations that you're faced with. What if someone has an allergy, but they really want this, but they can't have that, but then you have to know like, okay, like we're really big on allergens. So like if someone comes in and they have a gluten allergy, well, I have to know which items are gluten-free, which ones can be made gluten-free, which ones can't be made gluten-free, which ones like what is cooked in the same stuff. Like, is it a gluten intolerance? Is it an actual allergy? Are you staying away from gluten? Like what is, so there's so many different things that like go into the actual service that people don't see, and like reading cues to a table. Like in the mornings, we get a lot of like business clientele who comes in. Like they don't want to talk to us. We make money. I make like really good money off of them because they put down because they'll try to take out someone for lunch and like impress them. So like, oh, I'll cover the tab. And then they'll put down their like platinum Amex. And then they tip me like 30%. But also like that, I literally don't have to do anything for the table. Like I go over, they're like, we're going to do this, and this. Thanks so much. And then they get back into their conversation.
But then on the other hand, you might have a table where they're very needy.
Yeah.
You walk away, you come back. Like, say for instance, I have a table. Yeah. Can I get a refill? You go and get the refill. You come back, somebody else. Can I get ketchup? You go back, bring the ketchup. Can I get this? Can I get this? So it's very needy. And it's like.
And then on top of that, then you have 3 other tables.
Yes.
What if you say you have one needy table, one not needy table, one table that doesn't really need your attention, but you can't forget about them.
Yes.
But you don't need to be going over there. And then you have like, especially if you get like triple sat, to me being triple sat like all at the same time is easier than getting sat like in like jagged, because if you get triple sat at the same time, you basically just treat it as one big long table. Versus, say a table comes in, they order appetizers, they order entrees. Now they're waiting on their entrees. That's right. Then you get sat. Then they order their appetizers. But now you have to go back and check on your table because you have to wait for their entrees to get to the table. And what if something's wrong with their entree? Well, then you haven't even greeted this other table.
I feel a different way because I hate getting triple sat. I hate it because, like I said before, you get different customers. So I can have someone who's needy and I can have someone who isn't. So it's just like, if I get triple sat, I might go to the first table that's needy, and then my other 2 tables are sat, but they're talking to me so much that I can't even go and greet my other 2 tables. So now my other tables are mad because I haven't came over in a few minutes, but I'm still trying to talk to the first table. So it's just like,
but
so
that's
much goes into service.
Right, that's what I mean. It's like there's like some people are like, oh, you're just an order taker, but there's so many different things, and it's such a nuanced industry where there's very particular things that like I don't know, we always like say like if you're ever like in the weeds, like where like you're kind of like stressed, like you don't even know what to do, you have to like to a customer, you don't even see it because you don't see if I'm in the weeds because I contain it. But the thing is what you don't know is that I have 3 different tables. One hasn't been greeted. One doesn't even have their water yet. One doesn't have their drinks. One doesn't have their entrees. Like, but then I have to do in my head of what takes priority. And it's not like, oh, it's always going to be this, and this. Because sometimes it's not. Sometimes the table's very adamant about they want their drinks first. They're like, oh, we really want a cocktail. So then you make sure the cocktails come out fast. But some tables don't care about how long their drinks take. So it's like, it's never a water, then appetizers, then cocktails, and this. Sometimes it's different depending on how the table is. Hey, we're in a rush, which I will never understand. If you are in a rush, why are you coming to a sit-down restaurant? Anyways, you guys, thanks for joining us today, talking about tipping culture, talking about the service industry, and all things restaurants.
We enjoyed this today.
It was a lot of fun.
And this is Evan.
I'm Sammy.
And I'm Robert.
And we are out.